dumbest lottery winners of all time. Winning the lottery is a dream come true until it turns into a total nightmare. Some winners blow millions in record time, while others land themselves in jail or worse. From reckless spending sprees to jaw-dropping betrayals, these stories prove that luck can only take you so far. How do you go from millionaire to broke, or even behind bars? You won't believe the insane ways these winners lost it all. Get ready for shocking twists, wild mistakes, and some of the dumbest decisions ever made. Strap in, this is Dumbest Lottery Winners of All Time. Justin Ryder. Even young children understand that just because cartoon characters survive jumping off rooftops, it doesn't mean they should try it themselves. However, Justin Ryder somehow reached adulthood without grasping this concept. He developed an unusual fixation on Austin Powers in Goldmember, setting his sights on achieving a literal gold member. When he unexpectedly came into $600,000, he saw it as the perfect chance to fulfill this bizarre ambition. Instead of using actual gold, he seemed more interested in the appearance, settling for lead-based paint to coat his private parts. At first, Justin carried on as usual, but when things started feeling off, he went out and purchased a different product, this time containing real gold. Rather than removing the first layer, he decided to simply paint over it, possibly too busy to bother with the extra step. Before long, he was discovered dead. The culprit? Fatal lead poisoning from the initial coat. It likely wasn't the outcome he imagined, but at least he achieved the gleaming look he had always dreamed of. A strange way to meet one's end, don't you think? Alicia Battle. She had a long history of run-ins with the law, having already been arrested for assault, credit card fraud, and vandalizing cars. But in 2003, she attempted her boldest crime yet. When the Mega Millions jackpot reached $162 million and the winning ticket was announced, Alicia saw an opportunity. She remembered buying a losing ticket from the same store that had sold the jackpot winner. When no one immediately claimed the prize, she decided to step forward, insisting she had won but had unfortunately lost her ticket. Strangers rallied to support her, offering help while she officially reported her supposed misfortune to the police. Meanwhile, the actual winners were taking their time, consulting financial advisors before making their claim. When they finally stepped forward, Alicia's lie unraveled, exposing her deception. Instead of millions, she walked away with yet another criminal charge, this time for filing a false police report. Did she really think she could pull that off? Antonio Cua-Toc. While he didn't hit the largest jackpot in history, winning a $750,000 prize from the Georgia lottery is still a significant amount. That sum could make a huge difference, especially for someone like Joe, who was living in the country illegally. Hold on, what? If you're wondering whether undocumented immigrants can legally claim lottery winnings, the short answer is no, they can't. That makes buying a ticket a risky move, but Joe must have thought he had a clever solution. Instead of claiming the prize himself, he asked his employer to collect the winnings on his behalf. Unfortunately for Joe, things didn't go as planned. His boss decided to keep the entire sum rather than hand it over, and when you're in the country unlawfully, there's not much you can do about someone stealing your winnings. Joe, however, refused to accept that outcome. Enraged, he took legal action against his boss, a decision that led to his biggest and final mistake. The lawsuit exposed his undocumented status, and as a result, he was not only deported but also sent to prison. His situation became even worse after authorities discovered that he had threatened to kill his boss's family over the stolen money. It's almost astonishing just how many disastrous choices Joe managed to make. Evelyn Basehore. Winning the lottery once is already rare, but winning twice? That's exactly what happened to Evelyn Basehore. Her first big win came in 1985, when she hit an enormous jackpot worth $3.9 million. Just 4 months later, lightning struck again and she walked away with another jackpot, this time worth $1.4 million. With that kind of fortune, she could have lived comfortably for the rest of her life. However, while Evelyn had incredible luck, she didn't have the financial wisdom to match. She gave away large portions of her winnings, but her worst decision was sinking most of the remaining money into gambling. Perhaps she believed that since the lottery had already brought her riches twice, it was her best strategy for making even more. Unfortunately, anyone could have told her that kind of luck wouldn't strike a third time. Now she's completely broke, juggling 2 jobs just to afford basic necessities while living in a trailer park. Despite everything, she still plays the lottery. Who knows? Maybe the third time will be the charm. At least Evelyn avoided one major pitfall. She played by the rules when purchasing her tickets. That's more than can be said for our next winner. This countdown gets crazier with every story. Comment 1 to let us know you're here, and don't miss the full chaos by staying till the very end. Christina Goodenow. Christina Goodenow had the kind of luck most people dream about, winning $1 million on an Oregon lottery scratch-off ticket. Sounds incredible, right? It might have been if not for one glaring issue. She bought the ticket using a credit card that belonged to her deceased boyfriend's mother. Using a stolen credit card is illegal no matter what the purchase, and Christina's decision made her win anything but legitimate. Her troubles didn't end there. The moment she claimed the prize, authorities grew suspicious. After all, a dead woman had apparently bought a winning ticket. When investigators tracked Christina down, they uncovered far more than just a stolen credit card. She had an extensive history of crime, leading to charges of identity theft, forgery, theft, computer fraud, and parole violation. As if that wasn't enough, law enforcement also discovered a significant stash of meth in her possession. If she wasn't smart enough to hide the drugs before the authorities arrived, she probably deserved what was coming. Making reckless choices is one thing, but the next person on our list had children depending on them. Gerald Muswagon. Canadian Gerald Muswagon turned a $2 lottery ticket into a life-changing fortune when he won a $10 million jackpot in 2011. But instead of securing his future, he managed to squander it all within just a few years. He purchased a house that quickly became a non-stop party hub, filled with an ever-expanding circle of freeloaders. His winnings vanished on extravagant gifts, luxury cars, and an endless stream of partying, all while accumulating multiple legal troubles. As his fortune dwindled, Gerald found himself struggling to make ends meet. In the end, he was forced to take on manual labor at a farm, just to provide for his girlfriend and 6 young children. Only 7 years after his massive win, tragedy struck. Parents' garage. His story is one of many examples of lottery winners whose lives ended in heartbreak. Whether it was bad luck or the so-called lottery curse, the next person on our list met a similarly grim fate. Amanda Clayton. Amanda Clayton was facing serious hardships in her early 20s. Struggling to get by, she relied on state welfare and food stamps just to afford basic necessities. Her situation seemed bleak until something incredible happened. She won $1 million through Michigan Lottery's Make Me Rich game. With that kind of money, she had the opportunity to completely change her life. Instead, she made a decision that was unbelievably reckless. A few years after her big win, a local news station exposed that she was still collecting welfare benefits and using food stamps, despite not being financially destitute. She simply wanted to have it both ways, keeping her newfound wealth while continuing to take government aid. It didn't take long for her to face legal consequences. She lost her case in court, received a 9-month probation sentence, and was hit with a fine for her fraudulent actions. Tragically, just a year later, Amanda's life came to an even darker end. She was found dead from a drug overdose. It's an unfortunate outcome, but as the next person on our list proves, many lottery winners end up being the architects of their own downfall. Tonda Lynn Dickerson. This story began at a Waffle House where a close-knit group of waitresses had bonded over the years. One of their regular customers had an unusual tipping habit. He would give them lottery tickets instead of cash, but only under one condition. If they won big, they'd split the money and buy him a new truck. They never expected anything to come of it, until one day, they were proven wrong. The next morning, one of the waitresses checked her ticket and discovered it was worth $10 million. The problem? The winning ticket was in Tonda's possession, and she had no intention of sharing. Naturally, the other waitresses were furious. They felt robbed, not just of their potential fortune, but of their trust in someone they once considered a friend. Determined to fight back, they took legal action against Tonda, but they ultimately lost, leaving her with the entire jackpot. When the customer who had gifted the ticket learned about her betrayal, he was outraged. Refusing to let her get away with it, He sued her, arguing that she had agreed to buy him a truck. The case even reached the Supreme Court, but once again Tonda won. However, her luck ran out when she attempted to secure her wealth by forming a corporation, then unknowingly made a costly mistake by gifting shares to her family. That triggered a gift tax, and when the IRS caught wind of the unpaid amount, she was forced to cough up $1 million. Her co-workers never got a dime, but at least she didn't walk away completely unscathed. If nothing else, Tonda tried to hold on to her money, but the next person on our list had a very different approach. Sharon Tirabassi. In 2004, Sharon Tirabassi hit the jackpot in Canada's Lotto Super 7, winning an incredible $10.5 million. However, in the years that followed, her fortune quickly disappeared due to extravagant spending and an expensive lifestyle overhaul. Believing her wealth would last forever, she splurged on luxury vacations, high-end cars, lavish homes, and generous handouts, until there was nothing left. By 2013, her winnings had completely vanished, and she found herself commuting by bus to a part-time job just to provide for her children. Given her role as a mother, one might have expected her to make wiser financial choices. It's certainly an unusual way for a parent to handle such a life-changing windfall. But if you think her story is surprising, just wait until you hear about the next winners on our list. Lara and Roger Griffiths. Lara and Roger Griffiths seemed to have it all when they won a £2.19 million lottery jackpot in the UK. However, their marriage crumbled in less than 10 years, proving that money doesn't always bring happiness. Roger decided to chase his dream of becoming a rock star, pouring large amounts of money into producing an album with his band. Meanwhile, Lara embraced a lavish lifestyle, indulging in luxury cars, a $1 million home, designer fashion, and an expensive private education for their daughter. The couple also invested hundreds of thousands into opening a salon, but as their finances dwindled, Lara found herself working there as just another employee, struggling to stay afloat. In the end, their wealth was gone, their relationship was in ruins, and they were left with less than $10 between them. When people say to follow your dreams, this probably isn't what they meant. The next winner on our list already had his dreams come true and still managed to throw everything away. Daniel Carley. Canadian lottery winner Daniel Carley got the shock of his life when he scratched off his Ontario lottery ticket and discovered he had won big. $5 million, Canadian dollars, or about $4.4 million in US currency. That kind of windfall must have felt incredible. He was in his prime, engaged to the mother of his unborn child, surrounded by friends and family, and his future seemed bright. To celebrate, he headed to the bar he co-owned with his father, throwing a massive party with his friends. But for Daniel, the celebration never really ended. Instead, he spent the next decade partying non-stop, ultimately blowing an estimated $1 million on drugs. When the money finally dried up, he turned to drug trafficking in a desperate attempt to sustain his habits. Eventually, the law caught up with him and he was sentenced to a few years in prison. Ironically, that may have been the best thing that happened to him, as it forced him to get clean from the destructive cocktail of substances he had been abusing. When serving time in jail ends up being a positive turn in your life, you know things have gone seriously wrong. Still, his story isn't the worst one on this list. Just wait until you hear about the next winner. Alex Toth. Alex Toth struck it big in 1990 when he won a $13 million jackpot in the Florida lottery. For a while, life was good, but poor financial decisions and reckless spending quickly drained his fortune. Without making smart investments, his wealth vanished, leaving him completely broke. After losing everything, his personal life unraveled as well. His marriage fell apart and he separated from his wife. Things only got worse when he landed in legal trouble for filing false tax returns, eventually leading to a stint in a mental institution. By the time he passed away in 2008 at the age of 60, he had nothing left. His story is a cautionary tale for those who believe money guarantees happiness. As many lottery winners have discovered the hard way, managing wealth is far from simple. If you were to win the lottery, how would you spend it? What's the smartest thing to do? Share your comments. Ken Proxmire. People always say choosing annuity payments can prevent lottery winners from going broke, but that's not always the case. Ken Proxmire hit a $1 million jackpot in the Michigan State Lottery, which was a massive amount of money back in 1977. Opting for the annuity plan, he secured $50,000 per year for 14 years. That was a significant sum at the time, but not quite as much as Ken assumed. He started spending at an unsustainable pace, buying houses, cars, and businesses, while generously covering expenses whenever he went out with friends. Before long, his investments began to crumble, and his pool hall alone racked up $60,000 in debt, making his annual payout seem like mere pocket change. Looking back, Ken had some grim advice for future lottery winners. Crawl into a hole and pull the top end. Probably not the words of wisdom most people would hope for. If grown adults can destroy their fortunes this easily, imagine what happens when a teenager wins the lottery. Let's take a look at the next case. Callie Rogers. In 2003, Callie Rogers was a 16-year-old living in foster care and working at a supermarket when her life took an unexpected turn. She became the youngest lottery winner in history. With £1.9 million, about $2.3 million suddenly at her disposal, her world changed overnight. Unfortunately, that change wasn't for the better. Lacking proper guidance, Callie spent recklessly on extravagant luxuries, all while falling into a destructive lifestyle. She developed a drug habit, battled depression, and turned to plastic surgery in an attempt to boost her self-esteem, only to find that it didn't bring her happiness. She later admitted that the money left her feeling isolated, as people only seemed interested in her wealth. Strangers in bars would accept drinks from her only to sell stories about her to tabloids. In the end, she lost every penny of her winnings. Now she actively campaigns to raise the minimum age for lottery participation, hoping to prevent other young winners from making the same mistakes. Of course, Callie isn't the most well-known teenage lottery winner. Michael Carroll. At just 19 years old, British teenager Michael Carroll hit the jackpot, winning an astounding £14 million. Incredibly, he collected his winnings while still wearing a police ankle bracelet, a sign of the chaos that was about to unfold. Michael burned through his fortune at a reckless pace. He bought a mansion he wasn't even fond of, then poured even more money into expensive renovations. In his backyard, he built a demolition derby track where he delighted in wrecking luxury cars for fun. His lifestyle spiraled further out of control as he started his mornings with vodka and narcotics while hosting million-dollar sex parties at his estate, despite having a wife and child. It didn't take long for his destructive behavior to push away his family and friends. Eventually, the money ran out, and his lavish lifestyle collapsed. Fortunately for him, his wife chose to give him another chance and took him back. Looking back, Michael admitted that if he still had the money, he'd probably be dead by now. Do you think his downfall was just bad luck? Well, the next winner on our list struck it rich on Friday the 13th, so maybe he has the answer. Lou Eisenberg. Lou Eisenberg became New York's luckiest man in 1981 when he won a $5 million jackpot, the largest lottery payout the state had ever seen at the time. His life should have been set after that, but perhaps winning on Friday the 13th wasn't the best omen, because his fortune didn't bring him much luck in the long run. Instead of securing his future with smart investments or pursuing a lifelong dream, Lou squandered most of his winnings on gambling. What remained was quickly drained by divorce settlements, leaving him with nothing to show for his once massive prize. The last known reports placed him living in a mobile home, a far cry from the luxurious life one might expect from a multimillionaire. Maybe his downfall wasn't bad luck after all, just poor choices. Still, not everyone who loses their fortune stays down for good. Some people manage to bounce back against all odds. Curtis Sharp. Curtis Sharp struck it rich in 1982 when he won a $5 million jackpot in the New York lottery. However, his story quickly became a classic case of rags to riches, and then right back again. Rather than securing his financial future, Curtis indulged in a lavish lifestyle, splurging on extravagant casino trips, flashy sports cars, and expensive gifts for friends and family. Before long, his fortune had vanished, leaving him with little to show for his once massive winnings. Today, Curtis has taken a very different path. He now serves as a minister in Tennessee, using his experience as a cautionary tale for others. His advice to future lottery winners? walk away and clear their heads before spending any of their winnings. Considering how many former millionaires end up with nothing, his story remains relatively uplifting. That said, not every lottery winner gets a second chance. So the next story on our list is one of the most tragic. William Post. In 1988, William Bud Post III won a staggering $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery. He believed his financial troubles were over, but instead his life quickly unraveled. Despite having no pilot's license, he impulsively bought a plane. He also poured money into helping a sibling launch a restaurant and a used car business, both of which failed. Meanwhile, his former girlfriend, who was also his landlord, sued him for a third of his winnings. When he refused to pay, the court froze his assets. His relationships with family members also turned toxic, with William even alleging that one of his brothers attempted to hire a hitman to kill him. It's hard to imagine things getting much worse than that. At one point, a repo man arrived to reclaim his car, and in a reckless move, William responded by opening fire. Unsurprisingly, this landed him in jail. By the time his money was gone, he was surviving on Social Security disability benefits until his death at 66. Would you tell your family if you won the lottery? Let us know yes or no in the comments. John Roberts. In 1998, John Roberts was living in government housing in Scotland when his life changed overnight. He won a massive £3.1 million jackpot, roughly $5.1 million. For anyone, that's a life-changing sum, but for someone who had never experienced wealth, it was even more overwhelming. With endless possibilities before him, John could have used his fortune wisely, but instead, he burned through it all. He splurged on luxury cars and extravagant mansions, living large without any thought for the future. To make matters worse, people he trusted took advantage of him, convincing him to invest in fraudulent schemes that drained the last of his savings. Just 3 years after his big win, he found himself completely broke, living in an aging mobile home. While it's true that his so-called friends swindled him, John never made much effort to use his money wisely. The next person on our list actually tried to do something good with their winnings, just in the most ridiculous way possible. Lisa Arcand. Lisa became a lottery winner in Massachusetts in 2004, taking home a $1 million prize. Like many before her, she spent lavishly, buying a house, going on multiple vacations, and indulging in luxury. She once hosted an extravagant dinner for 20 friends and family, ordering several bottles of wine at $200 each. She also enrolled her son in an elite school and furnished her home with high-end decor. However, Lisa quickly realized that after taxes, $1 million didn't stretch as far as she had expected. To create a sustainable income, she decided to open a restaurant. Unfortunately, with no experience in restaurant management or finance, she struggled to keep the business afloat. The venture ultimately failed, and by 2007, just 3 years after her big win, she was completely broke. The saying goes, stick to what you know, and Lisa's story proves that advice is worth following. The next person on our list, however, clung to their own ideas a little too much. Janet Lee. In 1993, South Korean immigrant Janet Lee struck it big, winning an $18 million jackpot in the Illinois lottery. However, just 8 years later, she was bankrupt, with less than $700 in her bank account and a staggering $2.5 million in debt. Her downfall wasn't due to reckless indulgence, but rather excessive generosity. Janet made large donations to political, educational, and social causes. However, philanthropy wasn't the only thing draining her fortune. Her gambling habit reportedly cost her over $300,000 annually. Still, she gave away even more money than she lost gambling. Among her many contributions was a $1 million donation to Washington University for the construction of a new library. By 2001, her wealth had completely disappeared. While she was left with nothing, at least many others benefited from her generosity. Being charitable is admirable, but perhaps there's such a thing as being too generous. The next winner also gave away a fortune, except in their case, it was a complete accident. John McGinness. John McGinness learned the hard way that following your heart doesn't always lead to success. In 1997, the UK man struck it rich when he won a massive £10 million jackpot, equivalent to about $16.3 million. Unlike some winners who struggle to decide what to do with their newfound fortune, John knew exactly where he wanted to invest his money. Without hesitation, he quit his job as a hospital porter and used £4.9 million to purchase his favorite football club. What he didn't realize, however, was that buying the team also meant inheriting all of its financial burdens. The club was drowning in debt, and those liabilities quickly drained his fortune. By 2009, just 12 years after his big win, he had lost everything and was struggling just to afford basic necessities. If there's one lesson to take from his story, it's this: always do your research before making a major financial decision. Another crucial lesson for lottery winners: never trust the wrong people. Marva Wilson. In 2012, Marva Wilson won a $2 million jackpot in the Missouri lottery. Managing such a large sum can be challenging, but fortunately her trusted friend Freya Pearson offered to help with financial management and taxes. Unfortunately, Pearson wasn't the friend she claimed to be. She was a con artist. She tricked Marva into signing over $400,000 of her winnings, depositing it into a bank account that Pearson had secretly set up. On top of that, she gained access to Marva's other accounts. With free rein over the money, Pearson went on a reckless spending spree, using Marva's fortune to travel, gamble, and buy luxury cars and an apartment for herself. Thankfully, her deception didn't last forever. Pearson was eventually caught, convicted, and sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. However, by the time justice was served, the money was long gone. Pearson had blown through every dollar in less than 2 years. It's always tragic when lottery winners fall victim to theft. But what happens when the winners themselves are the ones stealing from others? James Hayes. James Hayes was working as an overnight security guard in 1998 when his luck took a dramatic turn. He won a staggering $19 million in California's Super Lotto. However, his story quickly became one of downfall rather than prosperity. Not long after his big win, his ex-wife reportedly took half of his jackpot in their divorce settlement. Left with a dwindling fortune, James developed a costly heroin addiction, spending nearly $1,000 a week to sustain his habit. As his money ran out, he turned to crime, robbing banks to maintain his lifestyle. His methods earned him 2 FBI nicknames: the PT Cruiser Bandit for the car he drove, and the Seasoned Bandit due to his graying hair. His criminal run came to an end in 2018 when he pleaded guilty to bank robbery and received a 33-month prison sentence. By then, every cent of his lottery winnings was gone. After hearing the next story on our list, though, you might feel like the banks had it coming, even if legally we don't support that idea. Francisco Guerrero. Winning a massive jackpot means knowing exactly who to trust with your fortune. Francisco Guerrero, a humble bricklayer from Spain, had always lived modestly, but through years of hard work, he managed to buy a few properties. Then, in an instant, his life changed. He became a multimillionaire after winning the equivalent of $8.6 million. Having never handled that kind of money before, Francisco decided to rely on his bank for guidance. Taking their advice, he placed 40% of his winnings into savings for his 4 children, while the rest was invested. The bank assured him the investment was completely safe, risk-free, and guaranteed to generate a steady 17% return each year. It sounded like the perfect plan. Rather than splurging on luxuries, Francisco continued working as usual and never touched a single cent of his prize. In fact, he barely thought about the money again until disaster struck. After injuring his knee, he went to the bank to withdraw a small sum for surgery, only to receive shocking news. His account was empty. The bank had recklessly squandered his entire fortune on a disastrous investment. But the situation was even worse than he realized. The failed investment had accumulated massive debts, leaving him not only broke but owing an enormous sum of money. As a result, he lost not just his winnings but also the properties he had worked so hard to purchase before his jackpot win. Though the courts later ruled that the bank must repay some of his lost fortune, the amount was nowhere near what he had before. Francisco's story might be one of the most heartbreaking lottery tales ever, perhaps even more tragic than murder. But we'll let you be the judge of that. The Simpsons 2025 predictions are coming true.
The Simpsons predicting a big news event. The story this time is that the iconic TV show eerily predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus.
The show's forecasts for 2025 are astonishing. Renowned for its almost supernatural ability to anticipate future events, the beloved series continues to amaze. This particular scene stands out as the most precise prediction the show has ever made, reaching a startling level of accuracy.
I have come back in time to reveal the events of the future.
The question remains the same as it has for 3 decades. How does The Simpsons manage to predict everything from groundbreaking technological advancements to astonishing global occurrences?
So the producers have assembled the top supposed predictions made by The Simpsons.
Fans are once again abuzz, especially with another COVID wave unfolding in a way that feels straight out of a Springfield episode. I've traveled back in time to disclose future events, prompting the producers to compile the most notable alleged predictions from The Simpsons. Could the show have anticipated the next twist in a global pandemic? Whether it stems from sheer coincidence or remarkable creativity, these predictions never fail to astonish. It raises the question, is The Simpsons more prophecy than satire? Disney acquires Fox. In 1998, The Simpsons featured a seemingly insignificant joke. 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Co. This quick gag appeared in the episode When You Dish Upon a Star, in which Homer crosses paths with Hollywood celebrities, including Kim Basinger and Alec Baldwin. Years later, reality mirrored fiction when Disney officially acquired 21st Century Fox. In one moment, the camera sweeps over a sign outside the Fox studio lot, humorously suggesting that Disney owns it. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than a throwaway gag. After all, who would have thought that the powerful Fox empire could ever fall under Disney's control? Yet nearly 2 decades later, that's exactly what unfolded. In 2017, Disney stunned the industry by announcing a massive deal to acquire most of 21st Century Fox for approximately $52 billion. By 2019, the deal was finalized, officially making Bart Simpson and Mickey Mouse part of the same corporate family. This historic merger reshaped Hollywood, uniting major franchises like The Simpsons, Deadpool, and the X-Men under Disney's banner. Fans quickly recalled the 1998 Simpsons episode and marveled at how the show once again seemed to predict the future. Was it just a lucky coincidence? Perhaps. But it still became reality, sparking viral clips and social media buzz. Some questioned how The Simpsons could foresee such an unlikely event, while others simply shrugged and said, "That's just The Simpsons for you." Regardless, it remains one of the most striking examples of a joke unexpectedly turning into reality. Smartwatches. Smartwatches were hinted at long before people ever imagined speaking into their wrists. The Simpsons playfully introduced the idea of a watch functioning as a phone in the 1995 episode Lisa's Wedding. Set in a futuristic world where Lisa is engaged to an Englishman named Hugh, the episode sprinkles in various sci-fi elements, self-driving cars, video calls, and most notably, a wristwatch that serves as a two-way communicator. At the time, the idea felt more like something from an old spy film. Intriguing, but far from realistic. The thought of making a call without using a traditional phone or even a flip phone seemed far-fetched. Yet what once felt like whimsical fiction eventually became an everyday reality. The moment flashes by quickly, yet it left a lasting impression on viewers who later recalled it when smartwatches became reality. While early attempts at wrist-based communication emerged in the late 1990s, they were bulky and costly. Only after significant advancements in miniaturized technology did companies like Apple, Samsung, and others transform them into everyday essentials. By that time, society was prepared. Fitness tracking, texting from your wrist, and even making phone calls via a watch had become commonplace. When fans realized The Simpsons had depicted this future years earlier, they couldn't resist adding it to the show's long list of predictions. Many found it hilarious that something once portrayed as a joke, Lisa's fiancé talking into his watch, had seamlessly integrated into daily life. Whether it was a lucky guess or the writers cleverly satirizing future trends, this scene remains a playful yet surprisingly accurate look at our technology-driven world. Autocorrect mishaps. Back in 1994, texting wasn't a common practice, and handheld technology was still in its infancy. So when The Simpsons mocked the Apple Newton's flawed handwriting recognition, it felt like a light-hearted jab at early tech limitations. In the episode Lisa on Ice, schoolyard bully Dolph attempts to write "beat up Martin" on his Newton, but the device hilariously misinterprets it as "eat up Martha." The mistake becomes a running joke, highlighting the frustrations of clumsy digital assistants. Fast forward to the modern era, and autocorrect has become a standard feature across smartphones worldwide. Whether using iOS, Android, or another platform, nearly everyone has experienced the annoyance of an unintentionally garbled text. The expression "damn you, autocorrect" took off on social media as users posted screenshots of the most amusing blunders, ranging from innocent typos to utterly embarrassing mistakes. These contemporary autocorrect mishaps bear a striking resemblance to Dolph's Newton disaster. Interestingly, the gag seemingly didn't go unnoticed by Apple. Years later, some employees acknowledged that the "eat up Martha" scene served as an internal lesson on the importance of accurate text prediction and intuitive user interfaces. In a humorous case of life-mirroring fiction, that single goofy moment from The Simpsons ended up influencing the refinement of a technology that has become essential to everyday communication. It's a perfect example of how The Simpsons playfully critiques a small technological flaw, only for it to evolve into a much larger conversation about usability and the quirks of digital assistants. The mass of the Higgs boson. In the 1998 episode The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer Simpson embarks on a quest to become an inventor, determined to overcome his usual laziness and emulate Thomas Edison. As he brainstorms bizarre creations such as an electric hammer, he stands in front of a chalkboard filled with intricate mathematical equations. At first, it seems like nothing more than a joke. Homer, a character known for his lack of intelligence, casually dabbling in complex physics, is inherently amusing. However, years later, both fans and some scientists notice something remarkable about one of his chalkboard equations. The formula he wrote down turned out to be surprisingly close to predicting the mass of the Higgs boson particle, which was officially discovered in 2012 at the Large Hadron Collider. Often called the God particle, the Higgs is a major breakthrough in physics as it helps explain why certain particles possess mass. Scientists had been searching for it for decades, making its eventual confirmation a landmark achievement in modern science. How did Homer's chaotic chalkboard end up resembling real scientific theories? Some believe The Simpsons drew inspiration from prevailing ideas in the science community at the time, while others see it as pure coincidence. Regardless, it's remarkable that a background gag could end up so eerily close to reality. True to form, the show never claimed credit for predicting the Higgs boson once scientists confirmed its existence. Instead, fans unearthed the connection and spread it across the internet, adding it to the growing list of moments where The Simpsons seemed almost prophetic. It's both amusing and astonishing that a comedy series could craft a joke that aligns so closely with actual scientific breakthroughs. Whether the moment was the result of chance or a testament to the writer's cleverness, one thing is clear. The Simpsons has a unique way of blending humor and science in ways that continue to amaze audiences. This countdown gets spookier with every prediction. Comment 1 to let us know you're here, and don't miss the full reveal by staying till the very end. Legalized marijuana in Canada. In a 2005 episode of The Simpsons titled Midnight RX, Homer and his friends head to Canada in search of cheaper prescription medication after Mr. Burns cuts the power plant's medical benefits. While the plot primarily pokes fun at cross-border shopping, it takes an unexpected twist when Ned Flanders meets his Canadian counterpart. At first, this polite Canadian Ned appears nearly identical to him, until he nonchalantly offers Ned a hit of marijuana, explaining that it's legal where he lives. Back in 2005, the notion of Canada permitting recreational cannabis was purely fictional, played for comedic effect. However, by 2018, the country made global news by fully legalizing it, becoming one of the first major nations to do so. Suddenly, that quick gag from The Simpsons seemed oddly prescient. While the show keeps a light-hearted approach, its writers frequently weave in cultural and political satire, and this instance turned out to be both clever and unexpectedly accurate. Fans were quick to draw parallels between the episode and reality, hailing it as yet another example of The Simpsons eerily predicting the future. What makes this story fascinating is how it mirrors evolving societal views. Over the past decade, cannabis laws have changed significantly, with numerous countries and US states easing restrictions or fully legalizing its use. While The Simpsons portrayed this scenario as an amusing exaggeration in 2005, it unintentionally sparked discussion about how something once considered taboo could eventually gain mainstream acceptance. Lady Gaga's halftime show. In the 2012 episode Lisa Goes Gaga, Springfield falls into a collective funk, prompting Lady Gaga to visit and uplift the town with her signature mix of spectacle and high-energy performance. Dressed in a dazzling silver ensemble, she delivers a standout moment by soaring above the audience with the help of wires. Originally, the scene was meant to be humorous. After all, Lady Gaga is famous for her extravagant performances, but the idea of her literally flying around a stage seemed like a playful exaggeration. Then in 2017, fiction became reality in spectacular fashion. During the Super Bowl halftime show, months of anticipation culminated in an unforgettable entrance as Lady Gaga descended from the stadium rooftop using cables, clad in a striking metallic outfit. For many viewers, the resemblance to her Simpsons cameo was impossible to ignore. Social media quickly filled with side-by-side comparisons, with fans joking that The Simpsons had once again predicted the future. What makes this coincidence so fascinating is the show's ability to seamlessly mix humor with pop culture commentary. The writers have a long history of referencing celebrities, and Lady Gaga's appearance was meant to capture her bold fashion choices and fearless approach to performance. No one expected her to recreate the scene almost exactly, yet it unfolded on one of the world's grandest stages. A new COVID outbreak. In the 1993 episode Marge in Chains, Springfield falls victim to a mysterious virus known as the Osaka flu. The outbreak begins after residents order blenders from Japan, unaware that the crates are carrying an infectious contagion. Chaos ensues as illness spreads rapidly throughout the town. Although the episode was never intended as a serious take on pandemics, fans later drew connections to its eerie resemblance to real-world outbreaks, including the 2020 COVID crisis. More recently, speculation about a potential COVID resurgence in 2025 has revived comparisons. The Simpsons frequently uses exaggerated, over-the-top plots to reflect societal anxieties and collective fears. In this case, the show depicts the rapid spread of an illness while satirizing the townspeople's frantic response. A desperate crowd gathers in search of a cure, only to inadvertently unleash a swarm of killer bees. Within the episode, this serves as a comedic twist. However, in retrospect, the scene feels uncomfortably close to reality, where misinformation and public panic played significant roles in real crises. What's particularly striking is how accurately the show captured the tendency for widespread fear to escalate when people face an invisible threat. While many viewers find the storyline amusing, it also touches on legitimate concerns about global travel and supply chain vulnerabilities, issues that real-world pandemics have since proven to be valid. Whether The Simpsons actually predicted a future COVID wave or simply crafted a humorous take on mass hysteria, fans continue to view it as another instance of the series seemingly foreshadowing major events. Voting machine glitches. In 2008's Treehouse of Horror That Teen, Homer sneaks off to cast his vote in the US presidential election. He attempts to select Barack Obama on a touchscreen machine, but each time he presses the button, it records a vote for John McCain instead. Frustrated, Homer keeps trying, only for the machine to stubbornly switch his choice. The scene is classic Simpsons humor, slapstick mayhem combined with a sharp political joke. At the time, it seemed like a ridiculous exaggeration, but just 4 years later, reports surfaced during the 2012 election of real voting machines, inaccurately registering voter selections. In one recorded incident, a Pennsylvania voter's attempt to select Obama kept switching to Mitt Romney. Although officials later attributed this malfunction to calibration issues, the resemblance to Homer's struggle was difficult to overlook. Almost instantly, the Simpsons clip went viral, with viewers once again claiming the show had predicted reality. Even election officials had to address the concerns, admitting that minor glitches in touchscreen voting systems could shake public trust. While clearly an exaggerated gag, the episode touched on genuine anxieties surrounding technology's role in democracy. Electronic voting machines offer speed and convenience, yet they also introduce potential risks, from software errors and hacking threats to simple human mistakes. Homer's comedic battle with an uncooperative touchscreen may seem absurd, but it underscored an important debate about election security and voter confidence. Roy Horn's Tiger Attack. In the 1993 episode Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling, Mr. Burns unveils a grand casino in Springfield. Among its star attractions is an extravagant magic act performed by Gunther and Ernst, two entertainers who bear a strong resemblance to Siegfried and Roy. Their performance features a magnificent white tiger named Anastasia, seemingly a well-trained and trusted stage companion. However, the act takes a dark turn when Anastasia suddenly recalls her captivity and viciously attacks the performers, leaving the audience in shock. At the time, the scene was just another Simpsons parody, an over-the-top spoof of glitzy Las Vegas shows. But nearly a decade later, real-life tragedy struck in an eerily similar fashion. During a 2003 performance in Las Vegas, Roy Horn was mauled by one of Siegfried and Roy's white tigers. Though he survived, he suffered severe injuries that led to a long recovery and ultimately ended the duo's legendary stage show. The chilling similarity between the Simpsons episode and the real-life incident left many stunned. Although The Simpsons exaggerated the dangers of working closely with wild animals for comedic effect, the real-life event served as a sobering reminder of nature's unpredictability, regardless of training. Looking back, the episode feels less like a playful joke and more like a subtle warning about the limits of human control over wildlife. The Simpsons often seem to predict the future. How believable do you find this? Comment yes or no and share your thoughts on their predictive powers. The Shard in London. When Lisa's Wedding aired in 1995, most viewers paid little attention to the background skyline. Set in a futuristic version of London, where Lisa is engaged, the episode depicted the city adorned with towering, ultra-modern skyscrapers. Among the various background elements was a towering, spire-like structure that was never intended to play a central role in the episode's plot. Instead, it functioned as a creative piece of futuristic set design, helping to establish the advanced aesthetic of the city Lisa visits. At the time, such a sleek, needle-shaped skyscraper might have seemed like nothing more than an artistic choice by the animators. Jump ahead more than a decade and construction commenced on a real-world counterpart in London, the Shard. Completed in 2012, it quickly became a defining landmark of the city's skyline, soaring over 300 meters high. Its sharply tapered design, with glass panels angling upward like a fractured crystal, bore a striking resemblance to the imagined structure from The Simpsons. Fans immediately noticed the similarities, joking that the show had once again managed to predict an unexpected piece of modern architecture towering above the River Thames. Airplane restaurants. In the 1998 episode Bart Carney, Homer and Bart befriend carnival workers, leading to a series of chaotic misadventures. Amid the circus antics, one scene stands out: Homer and Marge dining at an airplane-themed restaurant. True to Simpsons humor, the eatery sports a quirky name and features all the expected details: airline seats, overhead compartments, and a cramped layout. The joke plays on the absurdity of recreating the experience of airplane travel, complete with its narrow aisles and tray table dining. At the time, the idea of repurposing an actual airplane into a full-fledged restaurant seemed too far-fetched to become a widespread trend. Over the years, airplane restaurants have taken off worldwide. Decommissioned passenger jets have been transformed into themed dining spots in multiple countries, serving everything from casual meals to gourmet cuisine. Some of these unique eateries retain original airline-branded stickers on the windows, while staff members often don flight attendant uniforms to enhance the immersive experience. One upscale restaurant in China, for example, even features a full flight simulator as part of its dining adventure. Don Mattingly's hair incident. The 1992 episode Homer at the Bat features Springfield's nuclear power plant, assembling a powerhouse softball team filled with real-life Major League Baseball stars. Among them is Don Mattingly, the New York Yankees' renowned first baseman at the time. A standout subplot revolves around Mr. Burns's bizarre fixation on so-called sideburns. Although Mattingly's hair appears completely normal, Burns repeatedly reprimands him, demanding he shave off invisible sideburns or risk being kicked off the team. This running gag reaches its peak when Mattingly, despite complying, is ultimately benched, a ridiculous yet hilarious moment that seemed too absurd to have any real-world connection. However, the joke took on a surreal twist when fans discovered that Mattingly had experienced a strikingly similar situation in real life. In 1991, a year before the episode aired, he found himself at odds with the Yankees over their notoriously strict grooming policy, which mandated short hair. His refusal to cut his hair to the team's satisfaction led to fines and a temporary benching. The eerie similarity between the Simpsons storyline and Mattingly's real-life dispute left many wondering, did the show predict this, or was it simply a case of art unintentionally mirroring reality? Game of Thrones fiery finale. In the 2017 episode The Simpsons, The Simpsons crafts a medieval fantasy story, reimagining the family in a realm filled with magic, knights, and dragons. The episode playfully satirizes a genre that had surged in popularity thanks to video games and television. As the plot unfolds, a mighty dragon is resurrected and immediately wreaks havoc, setting the town ablaze in a fiery spectacle of destruction and chaos. The imagery was instantly recognizable as it leaned into classic fantasy tropes. Most viewers saw it as The Simpsons doing what it does best, cleverly parodying a cultural phenomenon at the height of its influence. The episode seamlessly weaves in classic fantasy tropes, featuring enchanted artifacts, mystical beings, and a rigid social structure governed by monarchs and sorcerers. Much of the comedy arises from the contrast between the well-known personalities of the Simpson family and the over-the-top, often ridiculous elements of a fantasy realm. This whimsical setting gives the show room to lampoon genre cliches, such as the overdependence on magic to resolve conflicts and the recurring use of dragons as symbols of destruction and dominance. The dragon attack in The Simpsons is a direct parody of similar moments in fantasy storytelling. The animation effectively conveys the panic and devastation such events typically bring, all while preserving The Simpsons' signature comedic tone. The exaggerated level of destruction paired with the townspeople's over-the-top reactions turns the chaos into a humorous spectacle. The scene unmistakably references the dramatic, large-scale dragon assault seen in series like Game of Thrones, unintentionally foreshadowing the fiery carnage that would later unfold in the HBO show's climactic finale. 2 years later, Game of Thrones delivered one of its most divisive moments in The Bells, as Daenerys Targaryen and her dragon reduced King's Landing to flames, leaving the once proud capital in ruins. The shocking sequence had fans reeling, but it wasn't long before the Simpsons audience noticed an uncanny resemblance to a past episode. Almost instantly, viewers drew comparisons between Daenerys' fiery destruction and a scene from The Simpsons, where a dragon set Springfield ablaze. Screenshots of both moments spread rapidly online, fueling viral side-by-side comparisons. Reactions came swiftly, with fans flooding social media to marvel at the eerie similarities. The Simpsons, famous for its pop culture satire, once again seemed to have unintentionally predicted a major entertainment twist. The striking parallels sparked a wave of memes and online discussions, with fans jokingly suggesting that the long-running animated series had foreseen Game of Thrones' most controversial turn. The cultural influence of these scenes was profound. While The Simpsons initially functioned as a light-hearted parody, it later gained renewed significance as fans revisited the episode following the Game of Thrones finale. The comparison struck a chord with audiences, reinforcing The Simpsons' reputation for satirizing and, at times, eerily anticipating real-world trends. By juxtaposing the two dragon attack sequences, viewers were reminded of the show's knack for capturing the cultural moment, even when working within a fantastical setting. Additionally, the parallels between The Simpsons and The Bells resonated due to their shared themes of destruction and chaos. In both cases, the image of a dragon laying waste to a city became a striking visual symbol of power's unpredictability and the devastating effects of unchecked ambition. These themes, while played for laughs in The Simpsons, were treated with dramatic intensity in Game of Thrones, demonstrating how the same narrative device can be used to serve vastly different purposes. The viral comparisons between the two scenes were fueled by their contrasting tones. The Simpsons' comedic approach stood in stark contrast to the grim, emotionally charged depiction in Game of Thrones. This difference underscored the versatility of the fantasy genre, revealing how similar story elements can evoke completely different reactions from audiences. Fans embraced these parallels, using them as a springboard for discussions on narrative techniques, storytelling choices, and the impact of tone on audience perception. FaceTime predicted. In the 1995 episode Lisa's Wedding, The Simpsons offers a glimpse into a futuristic world where Lisa is engaged, and technology has evolved in surprising ways. One moment in particular stands out. Lisa makes a video call to her mother, Marge, using a screen attached to a phone-like device. At the time, the idea of real-time face-to-face communication across long distances was mostly confined to science fiction. Few could have predicted that within a couple of decades, platforms like FaceTime, Zoom, and Skype would become everyday tools for staying connected with family, friends, and colleagues. The technological landscape of 1995 was vastly different from today's hyper-connected world. Communication was still dominated by landline telephones, and while early mobile phones were starting to emerge, they were bulky, expensive, and limited to voice calls. Video calling, as depicted in Lisa's Wedding, was largely speculative, more in line with futuristic fiction than real-world possibilities. The technological backbone needed to make video communication widely accessible, such as high-speed internet and sophisticated digital networks, had yet to be developed, making The Simpsons' vision of the future all the more remarkable in hindsight. At the time, most people still relied on landlines or basic cell phones that did little beyond making calls. Yet, The Simpsons playfully envisioned a world where seeing the person you were speaking to would be as effortless as dialing a regular phone number. Today, video calls have become an everyday convenience, used for everything from remote work and virtual classrooms to online doctor visits and family reunions. Even casual conversations have shifted to platforms like FaceTime, making it possible to connect with anyone, anywhere with just a smartphone. The evolution of video calling from 1995 to today has been shaped by major technological advancements. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, platforms like Polycom's ShowStation and WebEx helped make video conferencing more accessible. Skype's launch in 2003 brought free, user-friendly video calls to a global audience. By the 2010s, services like FaceTime, Google Hangouts, and Zoom refined the experience with high-quality video, seamless interfaces, and widespread device compatibility. Back in 1995, the idea of effortless video communication might have seemed unrealistic, yet Lisa's Wedding presented it as a natural part of daily life. Like many of The Simpsons' so-called predictions, the show simply exaggerated existing technological concepts for comedic effect, yet it astonishingly landed on something that would later become commonplace. The societal impact of video calling has been immense, reshaping multiple aspects of daily life. In the workplace, video conferencing has become an essential tool, particularly with the rise of remote and hybrid work models. It enables seamless collaboration across different locations, ensuring teams stay connected and productive despite physical separation. In education, video communication has expanded learning opportunities, allowing students around the world to access high-quality instruction and fostering greater cultural exchange. Healthcare has also been transformed by video calling, particularly through telemedicine, which has improved access to medical services for individuals in rural or underserved regions. This innovation became especially critical during the COVID-19 pandemic, helping healthcare professionals continue treating patients while reducing the risk of viral transmission. On a personal level, video calls have helped bridge the gap between distant family members and friends, enabling face-to-face interactions despite geographical barriers. For individuals with disabilities or health limitations, this technology has provided a vital means of social engagement, ensuring they remain connected and actively involved in their communities. Zombie apocalypse. The Treehouse of Horror episodes often showcase The Simpsons at its most outlandish, and Treehouse of Horror TX, which aired in 2009, is no exception. One segment, Don't Have a Cow, Mankind, throws Springfield into a full-blown zombie apocalypse caused by tainted food. The outbreak begins when Kent Brockman, the town's trusted news anchor, unknowingly consumes contaminated meat. As patient zero, he quickly spreads the infection, turning Springfield into a dystopian nightmare filled with ravenous undead citizens. This segment perfectly captures The Simpsons' signature blend of horror and satire. The infected, humorously dubbed Munchers parody the hyper-aggressive zombies seen in films like 28 Days Later, offering a fresh spin on the traditional slow-moving undead. The comedy is further amplified by the townspeople's over-the-top reactions and the exaggerated mayhem that follows. By balancing classic horror elements with absurd humor, the episode delivers a quintessential Simpsons take on the zombie genre. In reality, large-scale foodborne outbreaks have been a significant public health concern. Contamination from pathogens such as E. coli or Salmonella can spread rapidly, especially given the vast reach of today's globalized food distribution systems. The sheer complexity of modern supply chains makes it difficult to trace sources of contamination, increasing the likelihood of widespread outbreaks. A stark example occurred in 2009 when a Salmonella outbreak tied to the Peanut Corporation of America led to over 700 reported illnesses and 9 deaths across 46 states. This incident underscored how a single contamination event can quickly ripple through the entire food supply, much like the fictional outbreak in The Simpsons. Since the episode aired, concerns over food recalls and large-scale illness outbreaks tied to packaged goods have only grown, highlighting how minor issues can spiral into nationwide or even global crises. The COVID-19 pandemic further exposed vulnerabilities in food supply chains, showing how disruptions can trigger shortages and inefficiencies on an unprecedented scale. These real-world events reinforce the underlying message of The Simpsons episode. Food systems are far more fragile than they appear. While the show exaggerates the scenario with a virus that turns people into zombies, its core message remains relevant. Human behavior, food safety standards, and public health policies all play a crucial role in preventing catastrophe. This aligns with real-world efforts to strengthen food safety regulations, improve supply chain transparency, and enhance public health measures to better manage and mitigate foodborne outbreaks. If there's one thing these stories prove, it's that money can't buy common sense. Winning the lottery might seem like the ultimate dream, but for some, it turns into a total disaster. Bad investments, reckless spending, and trusting the wrong people, these mistakes cost them everything. So what would you do if you won millions, play it smart, or end up on a list like this? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe to Iconic Inside, and turn on notifications so you never miss a wild story like this one. Speaking of shocking stories, ever wondered which celebrities are currently behind bars? Check out 20 most famous people in prison right now. It's on your screen now.